If you're familiar with the brand BODE, then you probably already know that their clothes are just absolutely insane. They're so good, they're so cool, they're really unique. Their whole kind of like brand ethos is like vintage inspired. And actually a lot of what they do is they'll find like a literal vintage item of clothing and then they recreate it with like more modern techniques and, you know, maybe update like the fit a little bit and things like that. They also utilize a lot of traditional handcraft. So things like embroidery and beading and crochet and knitting, where, you know, back in the day you had people actually crafting all of these things by hand, which we don't do that much anymore. And they're kind of bringing that back. So it's this combination of these like vintage forms and colors and ideas and this really well handcrafted technique that ends up being just super, super interesting and cool. And I am obviously not the only person that feels that way. BODE is a super popular brand. It's super popular among like celebrities. Like Kendall Jenner has one of their senior cord couches and I think one of their tote bags. Tons of celebrities wear their clothes like on the red carpet even. Anthony from Queer Eye is constantly wearing BODE. I will find a bunch of reference photos and add them so that you can see what I'm talking about. All good things to say about BODE, except for the fact that their clothes are ridiculously expensive. I guess that's probably why celebrities are always wearing them. But it's literally like, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for a single item of BODE clothing. So I thought it would be cool to do a video talking about how you can find BODE-inspired pieces that are actually vintage. So I'm gonna run through a few different like categories of things, and I'll tell you what I searched to find them and how you can find them for yourself and what I think makes them cool. And I'll give you some examples of actual pieces that I think somebody should buy because they're awesome. So the first category of thing that I'm going to talk about are these like Victorian era to 1920s silk slip dresses, which are obviously something that people used to literally wear like as underwear. Like they would wear it under their clothes, I guess maybe around the house, probably with like a robe or something. I feel like people used to be really glamorous when they were at home, and now we just wear sweatpants. But there are tons of these like 1920s, 1930s slip dresses that you can see like tons of them on BODE's website right now. They sell stuff like this all the time. Literally, I would just wear them with like a pair of mesh flats or a sandal. And that's it. You don't really need anything else. And it's just like a super cute little light sundress for when it's hot out. Just search for 1920s slip dress. And then anytime I'm using Etsy, you just want to add a vintage filter and it'll give you things that are actually listed as vintage most of the time. Every now and again, a seller will like slip something in that isn't actually vintage, but that's pretty unusual. So put the vintage filter on and then you know everything you're getting is actually vintage. And then you can just see like instantly there's a ton of these, including a few that I've already saved. One thing I will point out is that there are, obviously if you're looking for vintage clothes generally, you're gonna find things, I mean, literally like from the 1920s all the way up to the 2000s. And the category vintage is pretty broad. So I really find it helpful to search for like a year or a decade. BODE tends to be older references. So things from the 20s, 30s, 40s. They do get into a little bit of like 60s, that kind of like college Letterman vibe. But a lot of their reference points are much older. They're not like 80s and 90s. You can find really cool vintage clothes from the 80s and 90s, but in terms of replicating what BODE is doing, I would always tend to look on the older end of things. And for these slip dresses in particular, you really want to be looking like the 1920s, 1930s. You could also add a filter to your search for silk specifically. Part of what looks so pretty about these dresses is the fact that they're really delicate silk. And that gives you that kind of sheer transparent effect that's just super pretty. And then you can see there's just all sorts of options that run, you know, some of these are like $30, some of these are still like hundreds of dollars. You can decide what your budget is. I love this little like super light pink, peachy pink number. It's super pretty. It's like a little bit sheer, but I don't think it's going to be like totally transparent. And look at the embroidery. Like the embroidery on this is just next level. And this is what I was talking about earlier where, you know, 100 years ago, people really were handcrafting every single one of these items, which is why they're one of a kind and it's why they're super unique. But we just don't make clothes like this anymore. Or if we do, they're just exorbitantly expensive. So like, I love that you find little details like this. And these little embroidered flowers across the top are just like incredible. I love this one. $150, super cute. This one is probably my favorite. I'm a little bit obsessed with it. I've almost bought it like 16 times. I just love that little embroidered bow at the neckline. I also love that seam detail across the waist. I think it gives it a really pretty shape that's kind of unique. Love this one. One of you should buy it so that I don't have to. This one is, it says it's from the 1920s. It looks a little bit even like more antique to me. It looks a little bit older with that like kind of smocking situation going on. Feels very like late 1800s, early 1900s. Again, really pretty embroidery. Like, look at that embroidered monogram. Like, I don't even care if those are my initials. Details like that are just so cool. And it's what makes vintage clothes really special. And I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with that embroidery. I'm obsessed with the lace. I think this would be just super cute. And people are going to ask you all the time where you got it and where you found it. And you're going to tell them like, oh, it's just this little thing I found vintage shopping, and people are going to be super jealous. So it's also only $100, which is crazy. One thing I'll say about shopping on Etsy, if you add something to your favorites or put it in your cart, sellers will often send you a coupon. So if I'm thinking about buying something, I will do that and then like wait a day. And if they send me 10% off, then even better, then it's $90. Moving on to the next category. One thing that I look at on BODE's website all the time and I refuse to buy because they are literally $1,000 minimum are these beaded bags. I just think they are so cool. I love like a funky, weird bag. I love a little bag that has some flair and some personality. And these ones are just like, they're sick. They're so cool. I'm just obsessed with them. But all of these bags are actually based on a style of bag that was popular in the 1920s that are these like little party bags. They were all hand beaded, which again is crazy. Like, I don't know how long it would take to hand bead something like this. I imagine like weeks, if not months. You can find these all over Etsy. You have to do a little bit of digging because some of them are in pretty rough shape, but you can find tons of them. I found like dozens of them as I was searching that I thought they were all great. I'm only going to show you a few of them. Maybe I'll share more in another video at some other point, but I'll show you some of my favorites and kind of the terms that I use to search for them. The term to search for is a 1920s reticule bag. And again, you want to put that vintage filter on so that you know you're getting true vintage. And then literally like as soon as you search this, there's just tons of them that are so good. I love this little like Art Deco blue one. The little beaded loops at the bottom feel very current season Bode. I love the beaded straps. I think it's in really good condition. Like I said, that's one of the hard parts of these bags is that they can be a little beat up. The other thing to check with these bags is the dimension of them, like just their size. They were obviously made like way pre-smartphone, pre-wallet probably. I don't know. I don't know if women carried wallets in the 1920s. I think it was probably like a little bit of cash and like a lipstick. So some of them are tiny. Check the measurements. In my mind, if I can fit like a credit card and my phone in it, we're solid. But check the measurements. So let's actually check the measurements on this little blue one. You can always find it in the item details. So yeah, okay. 8.5 inches tall, 6 inches wide. So it would fit your phone. That's all we need. Love it. I think it's adorable. $65 instead of $1,000, $1,500. Somebody needs to buy this bag. I also think this one is super cool. It's a little bit bigger and more of like a statement. I love the peacock on this. And the fringe is kind of crazy. Like it's just so over the top and so good. The colors of this are incredible. Again, it feels very BODE to me. Has a tiny bit of damage, like it's missing a couple of beads on the strap. Personally, that doesn't bother me. If it bothers you, that's fine. You don't have to buy it. But I think this one is crazy. And like that lime green thing at the top, super cool. Like you're not gonna see another bag that looks like this anywhere. I also think this one is incredible. The silver beads on it feel really unique to me. Even among the vintage options, I haven't seen a lot that have this like really metallic silver situation going on. And I really like that it has that like ladder beaded detail on the side. I think it's super unique, really, really interesting. The dyeing, or I guess it's embroidered needlework through the beading, that green stripey bit, it almost feels like tie-dye to me, which makes it feel super modern in a way that is crazy considering it's 100 years old. And yeah, I just think you could wear this with all sorts of things. It's really, really cool. The flowers are adorable. The colors are great. You could wear this with one of your little slip dresses, and I think it would be an awesome outfit. Okay, this one is a bit of a deviation because it isn't beaded, but BODE also does some of these bags that are just crocheted. And I found this one as I was looking, and it just like instantly screamed BODE to me. I wasn't even looking for this style of bag, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this looks like BODE. $35 for a 100-year-old bag. You wear this with all sorts of things, which we love. I also like to look at the linings of bags when I'm looking at vintage bags, especially ones that are like 100 years old, because sometimes even if the outside of the bag looks fine, the inside is kind of trashed. Like it's torn or it's stained or the fabric is just really degrading. And personally, that's something that bothers me. Like if I'm putting my stuff in it, I just want to feel like it's clean, and I'm not going to be able to clean this bag. So if the lining is super trashed, I pass on it. The lining of this one looks great, like especially considering it's white. I think this bag is in really good shape, and one of you should buy it because it's only $35. Okay, I'm a tiny bit obsessed with this one. I almost regret sharing it because now that I'm looking at it, I feel like I should buy it because it's really good. The colors of it feel very BODE to me. I mean, the shape does too. I think it's a combination of that loopy beaded fringe on the bottom, which a ton of BODE's bags have, but also the color combination of that like rusty brown and that really soft kind of mid-tone green feels, I don't know, I can't totally explain it. It just feels very BODE to me. Again, I kind of want to buy it. So I hope one of you goes and buys it before me. Another thing that BODE does a lot are these like lace or embroidered tap shorts. And tap shorts were a big thing in like the 30s and 40s. It's just kind of like the next generation of underwear. So like where the 1920s had those silk slips, once you get into like the 30s, 40s, people started wearing these little shorts, which I think are super cute. BODE has a bunch of different kind of riffs on them, and some of them have like the lace at the bottom, some of them are embroidered. I personally love a fun bottom. I really like a funky short. I think it's super easy to wear in the summer with just like a t-shirt. If you're searching for them on your own, the term you want to search for is a tap short. So like a 1940s tap short. These ones have to be my favorite. They feel like a combination of those like little blue embroidered cotton shorts that BODE has right now and just the general concept of a tap short. I love the little blue edging. I think it's so cute. And these button on the side, they're high-waisted. Like, I think you could wear these literally with just a t-shirt and a pair of sandals and they would look awesome. Okay, a similar pair, but like all white, no blue embroidery. Again, though, they have a really pretty like detail on the edge, just that really delicate embroidery that is like so indicative of clothes from this era. These ones are really similar, but I love that they have that scalloped hem. I think that's just a really fun detail. If like the all beige isn't your thing, I think the light pink is really cute. And I love the way these fit. I like that we can see them on a human person. And they just have that really like flippy, flouncy thing going on, which I think is really fun and really cute. Again, I would just dress these down. Like, you could wear them with a t-shirt, like I keep saying, which isn't that interesting. I also think you could wear them with like a chunky sweater, which there's probably only like a few days a year where you could wear that, but I think it would look really, really cool to pair this with like a heavy, chunky wool sweater and maybe like a pair of sandals. On a somewhat like related note, there's lots of these like cotton or silk little like tank tops, camisoles that BODE does, and they do these like year after year all the time. Feels like the upper half of the tap short. Like, theoretically, maybe people used to own both pieces. I wouldn't wear them together now, but like feels very related. Searching for these is a little bit more complicated because there's not just a single search term. Kind of depends what you're looking for. Like, if you want cotton versus silk, I think would be a big one. But I would literally just search for like a cotton lace camisole. Got to put that vintage filter on because you're going to see a bunch of stuff that you don't want. And then as soon as you do, there's just like tons of really cool options. This feels like, again, like the counterpart to the tap short to me, where like you could just wear that with a t-shirt. This is now the t-shirt and you could just wear it with jeans. It's a super simple piece that you could wear lots of different ways. You could put it under a jacket, under a cardigan. You could wear it with jeans. You could wear it with shorts. You could wear it with a skirt. Like, it all just depends on your style. But I think it's really, really versatile. And because these have like embroidery or lace or fun little details, it's more interesting than if you were to just wear like a white tank top that you bought at H&M or whatever. This one is one of my favorites. I think the embroidery on it is so pretty. I love that it has these buttons just running up the back. And the embroidery, I think, is just really interesting. It's a little bit more geometric with those kind of like crosshatch things going on. But then it has these little, I don't know if they're like stars or starfish or I don't know. I don't care. I love it. And it's literally only $41. I also love this little one. It's a little bit more ornate in terms of the lace work. I think the straps are super pretty. Has the little buttons up the front and the little like smocked waistband. Love it. This one feels very similar to the last one in terms of the style of like lace work and embroidery, but it doesn't have that smocked waist. So if that's not your thing, maybe this is a better option. I like that it has wider straps. If you wanted to be able to wear a bra with it, like that would be really, really convenient. Okay, here's a little silk version, which gives the very same effect, but has a different energy. The silk just inherently makes it super feminine and dainty and pretty. I am kind of obsessed with this one. Again, I love the embroidery at the top. It's just so delicate, so dainty. I do think this one would look actually really cool with like a black triangle bra under it. But if you want to just stick with the more like classic look, I think it doesn't look that sheer. $96, so a little bit more expensive than the others. It is from the 1920s, so it's older and it's silk. So that's probably why it's a little bit pricier, but I still think it's a really reasonable price for what it is. And it's super pretty, and it might be my favorite from this category. Again, like you could literally just wear this with jeans and it would be so good. And then you could layer anything over it, whatever your style is. If you're like a cardigan person or a blazer person or a varsity jacket person, this would look equally good with all of those things. Okay, The last things I want to talk about are a little bit different in the sense that they're not a specific like item of clothing. BODE does a lot of nautical themed things. They put little sailboats on their clothes or like nautical flags on like a crochet tank top or like a fish themed sweater. They do a lot of these like nautical or even like kind of on the nose sailor inspired things. And the way you can interpret them, I think there's just lots of different ways to take it. They have those like sailor dresses. Io Adebari wore one and made it look super cool. I think she wore it with like combat boots, which is just like so cool. A few of the items I found that I think scream BODE and are super cool. The first one, this like weird little sailor shirt that again, feels so close to what Io wore, but like the shirt version and not the dress version. This is definitely like, it's gotta be your thing. It's not really my personal style, but I think it's super cool. I love the panel on the back with like the name and the year. I think is really, really cool. Love the color, it's in really good shape. And it's only $45. So this is like one version of how BODE does that nautical theme. It's like very like hi-ho sailor. They also do some of these hand knit Scandinavian, Norwegian, like fisherman sweater things. I found this one, which feels very BODE to me. It's from the 1940s, 1950s. You can find a lot of these sweaters all over Etsy with all sorts of different themes. But this one just feels super BODE with those fish, that little like zigzag wave pattern at the bottom. I think it's really, really cool. I also found this crocheted tank top from the 1970s, which just feels so BODE to me. I don't have a direct reference point for this, but it feels like something that would absolutely fit in with the brand. And it feels nautical to me without being like totally on the nose. Okay, I had to adjust the camera a little bit. The sun started coming in at the worst angle. But there's one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is senior cords, which is something that BODE is really known for. They sort of rediscovered and popularized this tradition, which if you're not familiar, stems from like early 1900s. I think it came from Purdue University, but it was this tradition where when seniors were getting ready to graduate, they would literally hand draw on a pair of corduroy pants or a jacket or a skirt, memories or things that reminded them of their time in school. So it was sort of an alternative version of a yearbook that you could wear. And BODE has really popularized this in a way that's just kind of next level. Like I said earlier, Kendall Jenner has a BODE senior cord couch, which is crazy. It's super cool, and I do want one, but it's crazy. BODE has actually popularized senior cords to the point where finding authentic vintage senior cords is really difficult and really expensive. A lot of vintage senior cords are honestly more expensive than having new custom senior cords made. But if you love senior cords, like I do, I think they're like the epitome of personal style. Like it literally is an item of clothing that reflects meaningful things about you and your life, which I just think is so cool. But if you're into that, and you don't want to spend the money to have a custom pair made for yourself or to buy a vintage pair, I think the best way to approach it is really to go back to the original philosophy behind senior cords, which was to make them yourself. You can buy permanent fabric markers that aren't that expensive and just draw on a pair of pants or a jacket or whatever it is that speaks to you, and just make your own senior cords. Or they don't have to be corduroy, they could be canvas or anything else that you can draw on with these markers. If you're not an artist and you're worried that, you know, they're not going to look perfect, I think the whole point of senior cords originally was not to replicate a specific aesthetic, but was really just a way to express something about yourself. And I think it's okay for them to be imperfect. If you look at vintage senior cords, they're not all perfectly hand-drawn. They're not all works of art, because that wasn't the point, right? So if you're really worried about it, maybe you go thrift something that you're gonna draw on, so you're not spending a lot of money on it. And if it turns out terrible, then we just don't ever have to talk about it again and we'll move on. But honestly, I think if you just let yourself have fun with it, let your friends draw on them, just make it something that's deeply personal and a way for you to express something about yourself, they're going to turn out really charming and really cool. If you do end up making your own senior cords, please send me pictures. I would genuinely love to see whatever it is you do and just how they turn out and what you wear them with and all of those things. So please send me pictures. The same goes for anything in this video. If you buy something that I've talked about or find your own version of something that I've talked about, please send me pictures. I really want to know how you style it, what you're wearing it with, just other cool things you've found. And if there's anything else that you want me to search for or source, just let me know. There's genuinely few things in life I enjoy more than re-rolling an episode of The Real Housewives and just scrolling vintage on Etsy. And I guess that's it. That's all I have to say about Bode and shopping for Bode-esque things vintage, at least for now.